Listening to you again, brothers and sisters, and welcome to part 2 on the subject of prayer. I would want to deal straightforwardly to the answer to prayer. Yahweh, brothers and sisters, promises to answer the prayers of his people. But there are conditions. Certainly there are conditions. And among this condition is, as I would say, only, brothers and sisters, if those prayers are out of pure motives, according to his will, and with a genuine desire to glorify Yahweh Elohim. Look at Numbers chapter 14 and verses 13 to 20, brothers and sisters. Look at Matthew 6 and verse 10. Look at, in the same book of Matthew 18, verse 19, John 14, verse 13, and 1 John 5, 14 to 15. And I repeat, Yahweh promises to answer the prayers of his people, but only if they offer those prayers out of pure motives, brothers and sisters, according not to our will, but to his will, and with a genuine desire to glorify Yahweh. Believers, brothers and sisters, we should bear in mind that we have no right of our own to come into Yahweh's presence with our request. We have no right whatsoever. We come only because Yahshua has made entrance into Yahweh's presence possible, and because Yahweh, in his grace, accepts them, accepts us. Brothers and sisters, we come before Yahweh humbly and reverently, but that we also come confidently to ask of him our requests. What is it that we need? What is it that is troubling him? What is it that we want Yahweh to do for us? And we come to him, as I said earlier on, because these are things that we cannot do for ourselves. And I would like you to examine the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, verses 14 to 16, and also chapter 10, 19 to 22. While Yahweh people, we as Yahweh people can pray with assurance, we have no guarantee that Yahweh will immediately, brothers and sisters, give the things that we pray for. In fact, he may not give them at all. The reason for this may be that he has something else in mind that will, brothers and sisters, in the end, be better for ourselves, better for us, better for others, and more glorifying to Yahweh Elohim. If people pray in the right spirit and with the sincere desire that Yahweh's will be done. We are sure, brothers and sisters, that Yahweh will answer our prayers. In so doing, he may give something different from what was requested. He gives, brothers and sisters, what people would have asked for if they had the full knowledge that he has. And I want you to relate to Matthew 7, verse 7 to 11, chapter 26, verse 38 to 46, John 11, verse 32 to 37, and also verses 40 to 45. Also include in your reading 2 Corinthians chapter 12, 8 to 10, and Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 20. Brothers and sisters, if believers live righteous lives, we can have confidence that Yahweh hears and answers our prayers. But disobedience, unconfessed sin, and unforgiving spirit are hindrances to prayer. And I relate those statements to Psalm 66, 18 to 19, Isaiah chapter 1, 15 to 17, Mark chapter 11, verse 25, Hebrews 5, verse 7, James 5, verse 16, 1 Peter 3, verses 12 to 1, verses 12, and 1 John 3 and verse 22. Believers are to pray with the mind as well as with the spirit, as we will see in 1 Corinthians 14, 15, and we can confer that with Romans 12 and verse 2, as well as Colossians 1 and verse 9. However, we may not always know how exactly to express our prayers or what exactly to pray for. In such cases, the Spirit of Yahshua the Messiah, which operates through us in all true prayer, presents those prayers to Yahweh on our behalf, brothers and sisters. Romans 8, 26 to 27, and also verse 34, Ephesians 6, 18, Hebrews 7, 25, and 1 John 2, verse 1, and Jude, verses 20. I also want to deal with you in this session, matters for prayer. And as I said before, that prayer is an exercise of believers collectively when we pray at the assembly level or in small groups, what we call prayer groups, as well as individually. It is one of the functions of the assembly, particularly, brothers and sisters, of the leaders of the assembly. Matthew 18, 19, Acts 1, verse 14, chapter 2, verses 42, and chapter 6, verse 4, and also Acts 12, verse 12, and Acts 13, verse 3, and 20, and verse 36. The Bible gives many examples of the matters believers are to pray about. In our concern, brothers and sisters, for the world, we are to pray that the kingly rule of Yahweh will have its rightful place in people's life. Matthew 6 and verse 10. Romans 10 and verse 1. 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verses 1 to 4. We are to pray that Yahweh will send his servants into the world to bring people to know him. And that is why we as ministers and those who are sent by Almighty Yahweh, we must go out there. Matthew 9, 37 to 38. And that Yahweh will protect and guide those servants to make their work fruitful. Acts 12, verse 5, Romans 15, 30 to 31, 2 Corinthians 1, 11, Ephesians 6, 19, and Philippians 1, 19. Concerning, brothers and sisters, the assembly, believers should also pray that they and their fellow believers, we not always pray for ourselves, but our fellow believers members of the household of faith might know Yahweh and his purpose better, be strengthened by Yahweh's power, have unity among themselves, grow in love, develop wisdom, exercise right judgment, endure hardship with joy, and bring glory to Almighty Yahweh by our lives of fruitfulness and uprightness, brothers and sisters, as we see in John 17, 20 to 23, Ephesians 1, 16 to 23, Ephesians 3, 14 to 19, Ephesians 6, verse 18, Philippians 1, 9 to 11, Colossians 1, 9 to 11, Colossians 4 and verse 12. We should pray also, brothers and sisters, for the physical well-being of each other, as we see in James 5 and verse 16. Believers are to pray for those who treat them unkindly, though I may be sounding strange. But look at the book of Job 42 and verse 10. Let us also look at Matthew 5, 44, and ask for mercy on those who have sinned and brought disgrace on themselves and on Yahweh, as you would see in the book of Exodus, chapter 32, 11 to 13, 34, verse 9, and 1 Samuel 12, and verse 23. We are to pray, brothers and sisters, for civil rulers, so that Yahweh's will might be done on earth, and people might live in peace, as we see in Matthew 6:10, 1 Timothy 2, 1 to 2. In relation to ourselves, brothers and sisters, believers should pray in time of temptation, and when we have spiritual battles, as you would see in Matthew 6, verse 13, Matthew 26, 36 to 46. We are to pray for Yahweh's guidance, as you would see in Luke 6, verse 12 to 13, Acts 1, 24 to 25. For wisdom, brothers and sisters, as the book of James tells us, James 1, 5 to 8. For protection, as you would see in the book of Nehemiah 4 and verses 8 to 9, Psalms 57, 1 to 3, and for the necessities of life, like also you will see in the book of Deuteronomy 26, 15, Matthew 6, 11. By prayer, brothers and sisters, we can overcome anxiety, as the book of Philippians tells us in chapter 4 and verses 6, and 1 Peter 5, 6 to 7. In the last episode, I would also want to conclude by dealing with prayers, praying always. So until then, brothers and sisters, let us look at prayer in its entirety. I have just dealt with you with the matters of prayer, and I want you to read the scriptures for yourselves, as I have said to you earlier on. May Yahweh bless you, and may Yahweh bless you abundantly.